Before we dive into today's episode, I have something truly special to share. Next September, I'll be leading an intimate women's retreat through the south of France and northern Italy, and you're invited. Picture this: mornings exploring the colorful markets of the French Riviera, afternoons sipping wine, and a hotel view with golden Mediterranean sunsets. Whether you love photography, food, or just want to reconnect with your playful creative self, this trip is designed for you. Spots are limited, so if all this sounds like your kind of adventure, please visit tourwithabsolutely.com and look for the tour France and Italy with Crystal. You can also send me a message or check out the show notes. Hey guys, my name's Crystal Kenny, and I'm in love with creating. All things artistic and imagination involved. I'm an American girl who chased her creative dreams all the way to Paris, France, making a living using photography. This podcast takes you inside the stories of all the artsy folks I've met along the way and gives you that extra push to discover your creative gifts. The desire to create is deeply inside each and every one of us, and I give you the tools and inspiration to find a new way of living a more creative life. This is La Vie Creative, the podcast. Claudine Hemingway is a descendant of famed writer Ernest Hemingway. We bumped into each other at a party and decided to team up and dive deep into French history, but with a twist, by bringing a spotlight to those lesser-known creatives in France. This is History with a Hemingway. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. If you want more bonus material and to support the show, head on over to patreon.com/La Vie Creative. And also don't forget to check out Amazon, where you can pick up my new book, Paris, A Life Less Ordinary. In the book, I talk about my creative adventures in Paris, from starting my business to being homeless, hello, starving artist, to how I met all these wonderful creative people. Don't forget to check it out on Amazon. And also thank you so much once more for listening and for your support. Enjoy the show. Welcome back to Paris History, Avec, a Hemingway. And today we are talking about Diane de Poitiers. And she was actually the chief mistress of Henry II, King Henry II. And I love how it says the chief mistress, because that means he had a lot of mistresses, but this was numero uno. He really liked Diane a lot, apparently.
He definitely did. I know. I've always loved that too. When I see the chief mistress, it's like, oh, so is she in charge of the other ones?
I was like, how does that work? Is she bossing the other ones around?
Yeah, but Diane is another one of those that I just adore, and I just find her fascinating. A lot of it just because of the intrigue between her and Catherine de Medicis and Henry II, and it's just a really great story. So Diane de Poitiers was born on January 9th, 1500.
Whoa.
And she was born, and she was, from a very young age, she loved horses, she loved sports, she loved swimming. So she was definitely, a little bit of a tomboy, I guess we would call it today.
Yeah, definitely.
But her parents, Jean de Poitiers, they had actually, a pretty nice life. They made quite a bit of money. Their family was actually linked to the Bourbon noble blood. So, they had a little bit of that royal blood running through their veins. But they lived out in a chateau, and her parents sent her at 6 years old out to Saint-Valère for her education. And, while she was there, she was learning all about all the Renaissance, different, the humanisms of Renaissance, the law, etiquette, Latin, Greek, architecture, all of this stuff that at that time was quite the big thing.
She was very well educated.
Very well educated. So at 15, she was married off.
As you are back then.
As you are. Just kills every time I read the 14 or 15 years old.
Yeah, 14, she's married off.
Yeah, at 15, she was married off to Louis de Brez-Seigneur de Net. And he was the count, and he was 39 years older than her.
Ew, gross. 39 years older.
Kind of gross. Yeah.
Yeah.
So he was the grandson of King Charles VII and his mistress. And so he was, an illegitimate heir. But he, did have a tie to royalty. And he served in the court of Francois the Premier, so Henry II's father. So while he was there, they ended up having two daughters, Francois in 1518 and Louise in 1521. And even though they had this huge age difference, they did kind of share an affection for horses and riding and outdoor things. But she, because of his tie with Francois I and working in court, she ended up being a lady in waiting to Queen Claude of France. And after Queen Claude died, she served under Louis de Savoy, who was the mother of Francois I. And then she ended up serving for Queen Eleanor of Austria.
So she was in the kingdom.
She was in the case. She was in court in the kingdom. So she's working, alongside with her husband, all of these very, the royalty of France. So in 1523, her husband discovered this plot against Francois I. And he was, he said, I heard about this and this is going to happen. And, he told Francois I and told all of them. But he didn't know that his father-in-law was actually involved in this plot to take down Francois I and kill him.
Oh, no.
So, yeah.
Bad news coming.
No. So he ends up getting sentenced to his death for treason.
His own father killed him?
Yeah, so Francois I didn't die. But he just, had found out about this plot. So, so now her husband, is in big trouble. He's in jail and he is basically going to the scaffolding. He is walking up onto the scaffolding and they decided to pardon him and they sent him to prison instead, like literally minutes from your death.
Can you imagine? I don't want to imagine. That sounds terrifying.
No, just terrifying. So he ended up getting pardoned, but he ended up having to go to prison. So he was in prison until the Treaty of Madrid was signed in 1526, and then he ends up getting released.
So he was trying to do the right thing, and they locked him up, basically.
Yeah, they locked him up, which, back then, there kind of was like, it kind of didn't really matter a lot of times what you did.
Yeah, anybody could go to jail for any reason.
Exactly. So, but if only a few years after that, in 1531, he ended up dying. And so when he died, Diana decided to wear only black and white clothing. And she did this for the rest of her life. Take that, Coco. So
yeah. She was the first. So she actually really loved him.
Yeah, I think that, I think they probably had, definitely a closeness and a bond together. So yeah, when he died, she basically was in mourning wearing mourning clothes for the rest of her life.
Interesting.
Yeah, very sad. So she ended up she's working at, she's at the court. And years before he died in 1525, Francois I was actually captured by Charles V in the Battle of Poitiers. And he they captured him and kind of had him in jail. So they worked on this treaty. Actually, it was Francois's mother ended up working on this treaty to get him released. And so they got Francois released, but in turn, they took two of his sons. So they basically just swapped him out for two of his sons who were just 8 and 7 years old.
Oh, that's disgusting.
I know, kind of strange. So the two young boys, Francis and Henry's 7 years old, Francis is 8, were sent away from France. And Diane was there, and she was a lady because she was a lady in waiting to his grandmother, was there when Henry left, and she kissed him and hugged him goodbye. I think that just stayed with him for the rest of his life.
Yeah.
So when they finally returned, they had to, there was at one point, there was a ransom that was supposed to be paid. They didn't pay it. So they had to go through all of this stuff till they finally got the boys released, which is just so strange where it's like, that's fine. You could have the kids.
Yeah, keep them. We don't want them anyway. It's like, what?
Yeah, just keep the kids. We're good. So I think unless you were marrying off your children in royalty, I think kids were just expendable.
It sounds like it. They were farmhands, basically. But these are kings. Like, these king's kids.
Yeah, they were supposed to be, there was an heir to a throne and the rest of them didn't really matter. And, that it's like, let's marry him off to some other royalty. And so we could acquire, their lands or whatever and just move on. It's a very strange time.
I guess they had a lot to throw around. So they were like, we got plenty of kids. We don't need those two.
I mean, between all the mistresses that they have, some of them, I want to do a whole thing about all of the legitimate children of some of the kings because it would be a very, very long list.
I was going to say that would take years.
Yeah. So the boys were locked up for 4 years.
That's so crazy. They were kids. They were babies.
Little kids. So when they finally returned, they did a coronation. They had a big coronation tournament for Francois and his new wife, Eleanor of Austria. And so while they're having this big a big tournament and this big celebration, Henry sees Diane and he salutes Diane and not the new stepmother.
Drama.
Quite the thing. So in 1533, Henry ends up marrying the Florentine Catherine de Medicis, and who was actually a distant cousin of Diane.
Ew.
I know.
They're all related.
It's all in the family and all of that, I think.
Yeah.
Diane actually approved. They were very close at this point when he got married, and she actually approved and said, "No, you need to do this. You need to marry her." Because at that time he was second in line to the throne. He wasn't intended to be the king of France. So he's second, he's the spare, as they say, the heir and the spare.
Heir and the spare.
But she said, you need to you just do this. You need to marry her. But the next year is when their affair began. Oh,
so they couldn't hold back the love from that hug and kiss when he was being shipped off?
But he was 7.
I mean, how old is she and him during the affair?
She's 20 years older than him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. So, and she was beautiful. They say that she had this clear pink skin. She had chestnut colored hair, almond shaped eyes. But she always, and this is my favorite part, she always had red lips and red nails.
Like that. Relatable. Very, very pretty.
So, but they, Catherine and Henry had been married and they still didn't have an heir. So it was years. It took almost 10 years before they actually had a child.
Bad news in Kingdom reports.
Bad news. So, but Diane really encouraged Henry and said, you need to go to her bed. You need to go to her bed every single night. So even though they were together, she still was like, no, this is your duty. You need to do this. So finally, because she realized that was how to protect the throne. And so but I just love that she's just like, no, you need to go do this.
Yeah, get it over with. Make that baby.
So without an heir, this wasn't going well. So she finally, once Catherine started having children, then she was popping them out left and right.
So she's had to get the ball rolling.
But while Francois I, while his father was still alive, he had his own chief mistress, Anne de Pisseleu, and she did not like Diane. And she was going to Francis all the time and saying, she's hatching plots and she's out to get us and this and that. So Francois finally listens to her and tells her Diane has to leave court. Like you're banished from court. But when Diane goes, so did Henry. So Diane goes to Chateau d'Annette, which is where she, the chateau she had with her husband. She goes there. And so Henry follows with like a lot of his court with him too. And so, of course, Francois was not happy that his son just took off with the older lady.
20 years older.
And so it took 2 years for the two of them to patch it up and get back to, the father and son, had their moment and they got back together. And then just 2 years later, he dies. Francois I dies.
So right when they patch things up, he basically dies. Just
right afterwards. But Henry's brother, Francis, his older brother, who was the Dauphin of France, he died before Francois, before his father did. And he died after playing tennis. And he asked for some cold water. And it was brought to him by the Count de Montecatuli. And he collapsed and died.
What kind of water was this man drinking?
Well, if you recall from our last podcast about Catherine de Medicis, he was actually brought to court by Catherine, and he later admitting to poisoning Francis to kill him, and partly for Catherine.
Ah, that's right. Catherine was evil.
Catherine is a little bit on the evil side. So, but upon the death of his father, Henry decides at that point, Anne, the head mistress, is still there at court. Well, not for long, because Henry kicked her out and, banished her basically because of how she felt about Diane.
They don't mess with my lady.
Don't mess with my lady. So he stripped her of anything, any of the royal gifts she was ever given. He took, any of the royal properties, the land, anything that his father had given to his mistress, took everything from her.
Yikes.
And some of it he gave to Diane.
No surprises there.
No. So now, as queen, Catherine's the queen. And as the queen, and the Pope Paul III ended up giving her this thing called a golden rose. And it's, you might have seen one in the Louvre, and it looks like a scepter, and it has at the top of it has basically it looks like a flower, but it's all in gold. And it's, a very, very high esteemed gift. But at the same time, the Pope also gave Diane a really beautiful pearl necklace, which was very uncommon at the time to also award the royal
the mistress.
But Diane, I think, because she held such a high esteem to Henry and anybody else around, and they were definitely partners in a lot of the things that they did, that I think everybody saw that. And I'm thinking that the Pope probably thought, well, to keep on his good side, I better give something to her too.
Yeah, because he liked her more.
Yeah. So they were definitely treated a little bit different over time, the mistresses, that's for sure. So, but she was so trusted that she would actually write a lot of his official letters for him and actually sign them Henry Diane as like one word.
No way.
She was basically contacting, leaders and all these other people, and, signing his name, and he would go to her and talk to her about every decision that he wanted. So of course, Catherine didn't really love this at all.
Of course.
And Diane also was in charge of educating the royal children. So she was there all the time. And there was a TV show, I don't know, I guess it was a few years ago in the US called Reign. And it was about Mary Queen of Scots, and who ends up marrying Francis, who is Catherine and Henry's son. And he becomes king for like a hot minute before he dies. But Catherine is in the movie, or in the TV show, of course, and Diane. And so they changed a few of the things in the TV show. But Diane, Diane in the show has a son, but they never actually had a son. But it's kind of it's one of those more teenage TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
But it's kind of cute, and it kind of gives you a kind of an outline of what it was like. But just don't take every single thing you see in there as
serious. Made for TV, people.
Yeah. So, but Diane, she was showered with French jewels. She was given all these things. She was given the Chateau de Chenonceau, which was something that Catherine really, really wanted, and Henry gave it to her. And
beautiful chateau, people go visit.
Gorgeous. And some of, a lot of the properties had once belonged to Anne too. And so Diane loved having all these different properties, and she loved to be able to go visit. So she started working with Philibert de Lorme, who was an architect, and he redid the Chateau d'Annay and Chenonceau. He was the one who started building. The Chenonceau is a very famous in the Loire. It goes over the river.
Yeah, into the woods. I love how it goes over the river. It's really beautiful. It's one of my favorite castles.
It's so pretty. So he, with her, at first it didn't go across the river. So she started working with her architect, and they started building that little bridge. It was later that the rest of the building went up around it, but she was the one who kind of began stretching across the Loire River.
Oh, so that was Diane's idea.
Yeah. So, but her life of luxury was about to end.
Uh-oh.
So in 1559, Henry was taking part in a jousting tournament in the Marais, close to where the Place de Vosges now. It used to be the Hotel de Tournelle. And he was there, and they were having a jousting tournament. And he was wearing the scarf of Diane's colors, black and white. A sliver from one of the jousts got into his eye. And
I remember this. Ooh.
So he ends up he gets sepsis. They couldn't do anything to help it. He ends up getting sepsis, and he dies 10 days later. And so, but while he's on his deathbed, he's calling for Diane. He wants Diane there, of course. But Catherine wasn't having any of it.
Of course not.
He didn't allow her to visit. She sent her away from court. When it was time for his funeral, she wasn't invited. And so she basically just, of course, now it's her turn to, get rid of the mistress.
Yep.
And so she asked for all the jewels back. She took the Chateau de Chenonceau, but she was nice enough to exchange it with the Chateau de Chaumont.
And so she still gave her a castle.
Yeah, they switched it. And actually, in the grand scheme of history of how mistresses were treated over time, and like with Anne, when everything was basically like stripped from her, it actually, Catherine wasn't as ruthless as she could have. And her sons, who, Francis was king for 5 months and then he died. And then each of her sons after that, they actually treated her pretty nicely, considering.
Do you think she was nice to Diane because she raised her children, basically?
Yeah, maybe. And I think maybe Catherine knew deep down how much Henry loved her. Definitely Henry is I think Diane was definitely the love of Henry's life. And, in the Catherine episode, we talked a lot about what Catherine did to rewrite that love.
Yeah.
Write the story after he died and make it seem like Catherine and Henry had this amazing, beautiful love story. And none of that's true.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Diane was his lady.
His lady. So she, in the last years of her life, she ends up spending all of them at the Chateau d'Anet. And she also built and created a nursery, a hospital, a women's shelter. She did all of these things to give back, to create all these different things for women. So she was pretty amazing with the things that she did. And, she definitely used, I don't know, you could call it, I guess, her celebrity at the time and her money to do a lot of things to give back to people.
To do good. Yeah. To do the right thing.
She was at Annette, and she's, constantly surrounded by all these memories of Henry. She's also known to have always slept in black satin sheets.
Ooh, I mean, that sounds kind of nice, actually.
Because it like offset her beauty.
Oh, I like that. Offset her beauty. Why not?
Black satin, Amazon now.
Yeah, I was going to say, where can I get the Amazon deal for the black satin sheets? That sounds nice.
Yeah, but she walked it, she, in those last years, she would walk her ground. She was always riding horses, but she was 64 years old. She fell off the horse. And when she fell off the horse, she really never recovered. A year later, on April 25th, 1566, she died.
This is why I don't ride horses.
I know. So, but on January 18th, 1785, her tomb was desecrated during the Revolution, but she had been buried with her 2 young granddaughters that had died very young, close to when she died.
Oh.
So their bodies, at that time, that when they were desecrating these graves, they just would open them up, because a lot of the royals and all those people were buried with jewelry on. Open these things, steal the valuables, and like toss the bodies like into a pile.
Ew.
So she was just tossed into this grave. And not until 2008, this is crazy, her skeleton was found, and they were able to identify it because of her broken leg that never fully healed when she fell off the horse.
Wow, I can't believe they were able to find it, because like you said, it was just a pile of bodies.
A pile of bodies. So they did an examination of her hair, and her hair showed extremely high levels of gold. And so Diane would drink drinking gold, is what they called it.
No.
Because it was supposed to keep her young.
She drank gold?
Yeah, gold. And because she believed it was to keep you young, and you kept you looking beautiful, but they actually think that's probably what actually killed her.
I mean, that makes more sense in how you're supposed to heal when you're putting like metal in your body.
Drinking gold. Like, come out the ends of your hair, like, oh.
She was the Sun Queen.
The Sun Queen, yeah. So, but on May 29, 2010, she was finally interred again. And they celebrated with this like huge celebration and like this Renaissance feast. It was just in 2010.
This is so recent.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
But, a lot of it, Diane, if you go into the Louvre, you you see statues and paintings that say, it's Diane the Huntress, Diane. It was a Roman goddess, Diane. And she, I think from a very early age, she just basically, realized her name was Diane, and she kind of embodied who this image of this Roman goddess was, because she liked to hunt. She loved to have her dogs with her. And basically that's what like Diane would do for the rest of her life. She loved to hunt and ride and horse in her of her dogs and on horses and everything. So she kind of ended up embodying Diane, the huntress, as well. And
did Diane the Huntress drink gold?
Probably not. I don't know if they had it way back then. But but Diane, sometimes you see her with a little tiara, and the tiara just has like a crescent moon on it. Kind of almost looks like a horseshoe, and it's facing up. And so she took that as her personal emblem. And so she had that put everywhere. So she had all these like 3 entwined crescent moons. Well, Henry, of course, decided to adapt that into his emblem, of course, as well.
They were so in love.
So in love. So you could actually, I'll post pictures, but you could actually, there's parts of the Louvre. There's one room just not very far from the Winged Victory where on the ceiling you see it says Henry de, and then it has the crescent. So he also loved Diane the Huntress. So I think it's all just full circle.
Yeah, of course. I think that she kind of, for him as well, embodied Diane the Huntress, and like it was like the sex symbol of gods.
Yeah, and he, added like he did the staircase, the escalier Henri II in the Louvre, and if you look up on the ceiling in the relief, there's Diane the Huntress there. But a lot of people, so if you go to the Louvre and you've seen a lot of different things, you see the initials, and so all over the Louvre, especially on the outside, is initials of different kings that kind of basically had their part in building the Louvre. And for years, and I think a lot of historians still don't agree on this one, but there's a big H. And if you look at it on the inside, it looks like either 2 C's or 2 D's. So it's almost like, the Chanel double C back to back in the center of it. But it also could be 2 D's because of how it's written. And I'll post it. So for like everything I've ever read, nobody, even these huge, very prolific historians cannot agree. Like, is it Henry Catherine? Is it Henry Diane? Maybe it's Henry Catherine and Diane. Maybe it's one of each.
I think it's Henry Cathy and Diane.
But there is this really great statue in the Louvre now, and it's called Diane Danette, and it's this big statue. She actually had it made for her chateau, and there's a copy of one of them out there too, but the original's in the Louvre. And it is this huge, it's on this huge base, and on the top of it is Diane. She has her arm over a deer. There's also a dog there. She has her big bow and arrow up there, but all around it is the letter H with the 2 D's. So I think that it always means Henry Diane, because why would she put it on this big statue if it means Henry Catherine?
This is true. We will never know, but all we do know is Henry and Diane were like real in love.
Yeah. And then, Catherine tried afterwards to change everything and make it seem like they had this amazing, beautiful love story. And, she changed to put all these emblems on the Tuileries when she was building that, to have like, here's this broken mirror to show their broken love after he died and all these things. So it's a pretty interesting little triangle, that's for sure.
It just really, I guess it makes sense because they were all so young when they were getting married and doing all these adult things. It just all sounds like one big high school drama to me. Like, which makes sense because literally they were 14-year-olds being married off.
You're 14 years old and you're like, here, marry this person. You need to get it on to the first night.
While your uncle stands in the corner.
Yeah, and now you are in charge of an entire country.
Yeah, it sounds like a good way to traumatize somebody, which is also the way like Arrested Development works. We get stuck in an age. So that's probably why, this is just my very scientific analysis, is that it's just one big high school clique because basically they have the minds of 14-year-olds forever.
Yeah, and then at the same time, you're 14 and you're also treated like you're worshipped. And the people working around you are doing everything for you. Like, they literally put their clothes on them to go to bed. You didn't do anything on your own. So, you have all of that. And then you have this weird perception of what your life is. Like, what it's supposed to be.
And he's supposed to be like a sent from God, basically. I mean, a lot of stuff going on there.
There's a lot of stuff. And I think by the time we've done about 50 of these, we'll be like, all right, we are
the therapists to the kings.
Yeah. We'll be the armchair doctors and
let's add doctor to our names now. Why not?
We're a little loose on the doctor facts.
Well, thank you so much for all that great information, Dr. Claudine. And tune in next week, guys, for another episode of Paris History and Hemingway.
Yeah, and listen to the for more details on that. Even listen to the episode we already did about Catherine de Medicis as well.
Yeah, definitely listen to Catherine because this all ties together. It's one big scary circle.
Thank you for listening to Paris History Avec Hemingway. If you want to find out some more, you could always find me on my Instagram page, Claudine Bleu Blanc Rouge, and that's BLEU, as in the French way to spell it. And each day I post a daily history lesson about a person or a place or something in Paris, or it's lots of fun facts. And then also at ClaudineHemingway.com, where you can also sign up for my newsletter there.